Good evening, everyone. Please take your hymnals. Turn with me to 198. It is joy unspeakable and full of glory. 198. If you're able, stand with me, and we'll sing all verses. All verses, right, Abby? All right, amen. I have found His grace is all complete. He supplieth every need. While I sit and learn at Jesus' feet, I am free as free indeed. It is joy unspeakable and full of glory, full of glory, full of glory. It is joy unspeakable and full of glory. Oh, the half has never yet been told. I have found the pleasure I once craved. It is joy and peace with No, she's just been counting on me having a big mouth. I don't know if you remember back in the 1990s, we, in the cable stations, WTBS, TBS now, is the superstation, would start all their broadcasting 5 minutes after the hour to catch people that might be changing channels and whatever. So we're not superstation, but tonight everybody got here at 6:05. I just thought I'd let you know that. Brother Damani, would you? That has nothing to do with anything. I'm observing things, just observing. Brother Damani, would you open us in prayer tonight? Amen. While I got you up, as long as you're up, not 100, 29 at the cross. No, what was it? The old rugged cross. It's close to that. What number is that then? 27. Turn the page. Turn the page. The old rugged cross. 27. If you look at the screen, she'll have it right anyway. So just count on that. 27. The old rugged cross. All 4 verses. Hill far away stood an old rock. Thank you. You may be seated. Let me give you... Did I turn this thing on? Is this thing on? Is this thing on? Is it on? Okay. It's on. Dear Pastor McCain and Calvary Baptist Church, thank you so much for a wonderful weekend of fellowship. Thank you, Pastor, for sacrificing your home for a night. They were some of the nicest accommodations we've had all summer. Thank you for those who cooked for the activity Saturday. The food was delicious because we fed them to hamburgers and hot dogs, which leads me to my next announcement. But I'll finish this. Your people were warm and welcoming. May God bless you for your graciousness. Stay faithful and keep your eyes on the Son and Christ, the Ambassador. Open Hands Quartet, Luke 6:38. And this was before they even got an additional offering that they did not know was coming. He wrote this out, and so the church took up $668 to split among those four men, which gave each one about 170. What did that come out to? $172, which was more than we gave the speaker till Wanda adjusted it. So I think she felt kind of bad about giving him a check for one thing and us giving some cash to the young man. But, like I said, he's on staff at the college. He's getting paid, probably not enough, but he's getting paid to drive these guys around and so forth. And so they were a blessing all the way around. Speaking of the cookout, thank you to those who cooked, prepared, who brought things. It was all wonderful. And I've been eating. We ate it for lunch, and then I ate it for supper. And then I had one of the hot dogs again for lunch today. And so the boys, the young men and the McIntyres and us, we ate on these things. And now we're ready to give back some of these hamburgers and hot dogs and sausages to you guys. So after church tonight, you want to pick up some of these things. There are 14 hot dogs, 7 sausages, 6 hamburgers, and there are probably buns to match that. So if you'd like to take some home with you, then you can take some. If you want to stick them in your lunchbox and have something that just needs to be reheated. If it doesn't all get gone, you don't have to feel like, well, I'll take it and freeze it or something like that, because the junior campers and Vance, which we've got 4 campers plus Vance, will be convening here around noon tomorrow to leave, and so they can have a send-off meal of these things too. So don't just walk in there and say, yes, I'll take 14 hot dogs, 7 sausages, 6 hamburgers. If you leave some things behind, they'll eat that. But if you want a handful of burgers, some dogs, things like that, then they're there for the taking. That'll be after the service. Just go into the fellowship hall and get that. I read you a note from the Phillips this morning, and then as well as the Hoppers, and then those will all be on the bulletin board out here to the side. One more thing I want to announce. It's not exactly affecting us, but it may be something that you want to do. And I know I'm again speaking to. We've got 3 families out on vacation, and 4 families that are not here today. They're normally here on Sunday night. So I know some of this. I'm not speaking to a full house, but nonetheless, we'll just give you this. On June 27th, there's something happening. Well, there's a couple of things happening. Calvin, you know what's happening on June 27th? He does. That's good. So he set that date. So or Abby set it and told him, or maybe it was a joint effort. Let's think that it was. And they came up with a date. Well, on June 27th, after the wedding. Just to let you know something that's happening. I mentioned this a little bit ago, and Vance has sort of taken up the mantle on this, and you can let him know if you have interest in doing this. Good news. Good news, Free Will Baptist Church. I have it written right here. I don't know why I can't read it. Good news, Free Will Baptist Church. You're familiar with them, just down the road and around the corner here. Is Pastor Glenn Johnson is moving, not retiring. I think he's moving on to another ministry. But he's been there for quite a while. They're having sort of a sending away party for him, and so they're looking for workers to serve in their dinner, possibly even breaking down some things or maybe cleaning up, follow it. It's a 3-hour period. It does not coincide or does not overlap with the Hunter Burchett nuptials, but it will be. They're looking for helpers, 4:30 to 7:30. Again, I'm not expecting anybody from the wedding party to, quickly leave the wedding and then go on over and do that. But if you would be interested in helping them, they're paying $15 an hour for those to come out and work for 3 hours and or whatever you could work. I'm sure they would appreciate that. But they've asked the church for help on that. Vance will be there, so there'll be one friendly face that you know if you would like to help out with that. But that's 4:30 to 7:30 at Good News Baptist Church around the corner. And if you're interested, that's on June 27th. And that's we know we already got one thing going on that day. But if you think you'll be free by 4:30, I might not be finished with the message by 4:30 over at that. So I depending on how much I get paid, it'll be, sometimes you get paid by the length of it, but it'll be the brevity, I just bring it right on down. You have the rings, put them on, give her a kiss, man and wife, be out the door, which, I'm kidding. It'll be brief. We've already started working out some of it. Isaiah chapter, well, probably 21. You can start in Isaiah 13, and then we'll look at Isaiah. We'll make our way to Isaiah 21. Again, this is not always going to be chronological or in the order it's written. We've got 9 burdens to look at here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And last week we looked at the burden of Babylon from chapter 13 and 14. If you were here last Sunday, you got a worksheet. If you need a worksheet, there's still a few blanks here on the front pews. Anybody need one of those? Anybody need a worksheet? Brandon needs one. I need a couple on the back row over here. If I've got someone who could make a little jaunt past the front row and deliver back to the back row. If not, maybe you guys on the back row. One of you guys could. I don't know, but I'm not going to come down there. So Tim's going to do it. And so that's good because I really didn't want to. I lean on this pulpit a lot, especially on Sunday nights. My sciatica and hip and all not good, especially if I did some standing around. But I didn't even preach this morning. I just so here I am, and hurting anyway. Just sometimes at night it happens. But again, we're looking at Isaiah's burdens here, and burdens. These are spoken words. These are the messages of Babylon. They're weighty messages, and they are intended for a variety of people. These are burdens because they're heavy messages. Most of these are messages of destruction. And many of these are going to happen, some of these are going to happen in Isaiah's lifetime. Many of them will happen by the time we get into the minor prophets a little bit. We'll talk about these in just a minute. Last week we looked at the burden of Babylon from chapter 13, and that was talking about the Neo-Babylon Empire, the Second Babylonian Empire, Nebuchadnezzar and company. And it was fulfilled, that burden was fulfilled whenever Babylon was unseated as the dominant world power by the Medo-Persian Empire. Cyrus issues the decree for the Jews to return to the land, which we saw Isaiah chapter 14, the first few verses there. Actually even says there, for the Lord will have mercy on Jacob and will yet choose Israel and set them in their own land. So they're going to return to the land following the judgment on them. But that was not an ultimate judgment. We looked at the backside and we saw that prophecy would be fulfilled fully against Babylon in Revelation 19 at the day of the Lord. Whether we're talking about Babylon the Great from Revelation 13, whether we're talking about a conglomeration of world power, a literal reconstruction and resurrection of the capital Babylon as it unites with every other earthly kingdom, those will be stricken down in Revelation 19. We looked at some key verses. We talked about some notable phrases there. Even took a short period of time to talk about Isaiah 14 and the judgment against Lucifer. And we talked about that. There is something I still want to bring out about that, but probably I will bring that out after we finished all the burdens, and then we'll go back and hit that in chapter 14 because I have more I want to deal with on that. And we said for reference we could find Revelation 18 would give you more connections. Also see Revelation 18 and Daniel 5. And we're going to spend some time in Daniel 5 tonight. If you start on the back of your page, we will be, well, let's not start on the back of the page because I don't want to give away what I want to do right away. Desert of the sea, Isaiah chapter 21. We're going to read all of this, and then I'm going to work back through it and let you know bit by bit what we're talking about here. I think that you're going to be able to piece together who is being addressed in this burden after we read these verses. But then we're going to compare it to some other scriptures, and you're going to say, oh, yeah, absolutely, this is the people that he thinks it is. Isaiah chapter 21, verse 1, the burden of the desert of the sea. Now, when you hear that, you think, what in the world is the desert of the sea? Anytime I've ever seen a sea, there's no desert in it, it's all water. So what is the desert of the sea? It goes on to say, as whirlwinds in the south pass through, so it cometh from the desert, from a terrible land. A grievous vision is declared unto me. The treacherous dealer dealeth treacherously, and the spoiler spoileth. Go up, O Elam, besiege. This is a key part of our understanding about who this passage is about. I have not told you yet who the burden of the desert of the sea is written to. But wherever the desert of the sea is, that's going to be the group of people that we're talking about here. And the next verse, the next reference that we see to a place or a people is the word Elam. Now, if you were to study Elam, if you had a Bible dictionary or used software to look that up, you'd find Elam is first mentioned around in mid-Genesis, early part of Genesis. I know in Genesis 21 there's a more extensive dealing of him. And Elam is the grandson, is the firstborn son of Shem. Shem being the son of Noah. And so when we will hear about Elam, this is not talking about that same man Elam, it's talking about his descendants, the nation of Elam or the region of Elam. The Elamites are the ones who are being called to go up and besiege this place that is being referred to as the desert of the sea. Where is Elam? We saw who is Elam, but where is Elam? If we were looking at it on a map in today's geography, it would lie within the nation of Iran. Now, the nation of Iran, if you are familiar with Bible geography, one of the kingdoms that we study, if we were looking at Daniel's kingdoms, one of those kingdoms is in the region of present-day Iran. Let's continue on this verse. Go up, O Elam, besiege, O Media. All the sighing thereof have I made to cease. When you see media there, he's not talking about media such as vinyl, records, CDs, cassette players. We're not talking about videotapes when he says media. We're not talking about social media. What he's talking about is the kingdom of media, or if I reword that, we'd be talking about the kingdom of the Medes. So, I told you already that Elam is located in the region of Iran, and the major world power that came from the region of Iran, what Iran used to be called, is Persia. And if I say Media and Persia, you're like, oh, I know who the Medians and the Persians are. That is the empire that followed Babylon. And what does it say that God is directing Elam and Media to do? To besiege a kingdom. You think that kingdom might have been Great Babylon? It would be. And here's how we get this. When it's called the desert of the sea, you might say, I've never heard that before, and the phrase still doesn't make sense to me. And even after you describe it to me, it still may not make sense to me. But this is the interpretation of the way that that's written here. It is talking about Babylon. Babylon, modern-day Iraq. It is very much a desert place. It is very, very dry, but it does get some precipitation. It lives mostly on the irrigation from the What's that river? Oh, my goodness. How am I not going to? The Euphrates River. Thank you. I just had a slip there. And I'm sure I have it written right here. I do. So, the area of Babylon, the kingdom of Babylon, the modern-day nation of Iraq, is marked by harsh, dry conditions. It would rightfully be called desert. Now you say, why would it be called desert of the sea? These harsh, dry conditions are often interrupted by flooding from the Tigris and Euphrates rivers. Who's ever been to Arizona? Anybody? All right. Figured Ray had. My wife and I have. So what you'll find when you go to area. Now, Arizona is not nearly as desert. It's not quite desert as much as Iraq would be. But what you'll find there is you drive from place to place. What you'll just see is that you'll be driving along. It's all dry, and you'll see these terrible. You'll just see these terrible ruts wide, like a river ought to be there, but there's no river. Well, it's dried riverbed. And when it rains, you're glad that you have those, because those will fill up and those will be active rivers for a while. So it gives the water somewhere to go. The terrain slopes in such a way that, and those are deserts of the sea, so to speak. When the rain falls, whenever those, when those rivers fill, when the rain falls in Iraq and the Euphrates fills, it spills out, and what you've got there is flooding. The plain will flood. So this desert of the sea, the idea there, it's mostly desert, but occasionally it's a sea whenever the Euphrates floods from excessive rain. Just here and there. It doesn't happen. It doesn't happen all the time, but it is marked by both desert and flooding. Now, this is the interesting part. I'm going to ask you to keep your place here. We're going to read some more, and then I'm going to ask you to turn with me to one of those chapters I say will be an associated chapter. Verse 3. Understand here, when Isaiah writes these burdens, he's not always writing from his own perspective. Many times you will see him, the vision that he's given, it's like he's standing in place for someone else. And that's going to be important. You will see, you will actually be able to identify the party in which he's standing in place of as we read these verses. Therefore are my loins filled with pain. Pangs have taken hold of me, as the pangs of a woman that travaileth, who's in the process of giving birth. I was bowed down at the hearing of it. I was dismayed at the seeing of it. He's seeing and hearing something that is making him absolutely completely discombobulated is an adjective that I'll use here. But now look at verse 4. He goes on to describe more of the terror that's going on here. My heart panted, fearfulness affrighted me. The night of my pleasure hath he turned into fear unto me. Now we think through Scripture and we ask ourselves, has there ever been an occasion in Scripture, any situation we can remember, where someone expected to have a grand night of partying and reveling and planned on having a good time, and it was brought to a screeching halt? We're going to see them, and you guys are right on it. And I want you to see the picture of this, because it kind of makes my hair stand on end. It gives me kind of like a little tingle up my spine when I read these words, and I think about what the author who wrote down and recorded the event must have felt like, because no doubt he would have read Isaiah. Isaiah would have been written about 100 years before the event happened. And as he is beholding and as he is recording what is happening on the night of his pleasure that had turned into fear, Daniel would have said, "Now I know exactly what Isaiah is talking about." hold your place here, and we're going to go to Daniel chapter 5. And it is absolutely uncanny. Again, it's not something that humans couldn't coordinate. But what we read about in Daniel, and by the way, what's written in Daniel is easily verifiable by history. We even know the very date on which Babylon was overthrown by the Medes and Persians. We're going to be flipping back and forth, so keep your place. Daniel 5, Belshazzar the king made a great feast to 1,000 of his lords, and drank wine before the 1,000. Belshazzar, whilst he tasted the wine, commanded to bring the golden and silver vessels, which his father Nebuchadnezzar had taken out of the temple, which was in Jerusalem, that the king and his princes, his wives, and his concubines might drink therein. Then they brought the golden vessels that were taken out of the temple of the house of God, which was at Jerusalem, and the kings and his princes, his wives, his concubines, drank of them. They drank wine and praised the gods of gold and of silver, of brass, of iron, of wood, and of stone. In the same hour came forth fingers of a man's hand and wrote over against the candlestick upon the plaster of the wall of the king's palace. And the king saw the part of the hand that wrote. What do we see there at the end of verse 3? He says that I was bowed down at the hearing of it. I was dismayed with the seeing of it. When you read this, don't read it as Isaiah trying to see something. I believe the Lord has transported Isaiah, and he is observing. If he is not writing this from the point of view of Belshazzar, he's writing it from the point of view of one of those kings and princes and concubines who are observing this. And it was not just something where they said, well, that's curious. Look at that hand over there writing something on the wall. That's something. It says there that the king's countenance was changed. Now, it was changed from what? What do you think the king's countenance was before he saw this? Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. No doubt they've got music going. The Bible doesn't say this, but if you're throwing a party and you're drinking and eating to your heart's content, I'm imagining music. I'm imagining dancing. I imagine the king saying, I'm on top of the world. Everything is wonderful. Man, we're having a good time. This is the best time I've ever had. We're having a party to end all parties. And then the king's countenance was changed. Every bit of the joy and the jubilation, even they were praising gods there. Did you notice that? Not the true God, but they were having a time even lifting up the gods of gold, silver, the gods of nature, the native gods of the Babylonians. God in heaven is hearing this reveling. And he says, oh, I heard somebody say my name. I heard somebody down there was calling for God. Well, I'll come crash this party. But what he has to write completely changes the countenance of him. Let's go back to read there, verse 6. Then the king's countenance was changed, and his thoughts troubled him, so that the joints of his loins were loosed, and his knees smote one against another. What does it say there in verse 3? Therefore are my loins filled with pain. Pangs have taken hold on me as the pangs of a woman that travaileth. I was bowed down at the hearing of it. I was dismayed at the seeing of it. The loins, we're talking here at the hips, that has been loosed. Can we say that this event scared the poop out of him? I believe that's what it means. I believe he has lost absolute control of his facilities or of his faculties, whatever word I'm trying to use. I can't think of what word am I trying to use there. He has lost control. Let's just leave it at that, okay? His loins are filled with pain. Pangs have taken hold on me as the pangs of a woman that travaileth. I told you that travaileth there is a woman giving birth. What happens whenever a woman gets birth? Something is produced. You got a whole bunch of water, You got a whole bunch of blood, you got some placenta, and you got a baby. Well, every bit of that may have been possible with Belshazzar except for the baby. He was just absolutely floored. Back here in chapter 5 of Daniel. The king cried aloud to bring in the astrologers, the Chaldeans, and the soothsayers. And the king spake, said to the wise men of Babylon, Whosoever shall read this writing and show me the interpretation thereof shall be clothed with a scarlet, have a chain of gold about his neck, shall be the third ruler in his kingdom. Look down at verse 9 even. Then was King Belshazzar greatly troubled. His countenance was changed in him, and his lords were astonished. They were astonished. This was just complete. The party has officially been put on pause. Verse 4, my heart panted, fearfulness affrighted me, the night of my pleasure turned into fear in me. But we see the description still of what's happening there. Verse 5, prepare the table, watch in the watchtower, eat, drink, arise, princes, anoint the shield. What were they in the process of doing there in chapter 5? Big banquet. The table's prepared. No doubt they're there to have a good time, but there are armed guards who are watching in the watchtower. Eat and drink, princes, arise, anoint the shield. For thus hath the Lord said unto me, Go set a watchman, let him declare what he seeth. What is this watchman going to see? He saw a chariot with a couple of horsemen, a chariot of asses, a chariot of camels, and he hearkened diligently with much heed. Now, I have read that the ass and the camel represented, one represented the Medes, one represented the Persians. And it may be that the commentator is just gathering this from context, knowing that this prophecy is about Babylon, in particular, the night in which Babylon fell, what we read about in Daniel chapter 5. I mean, Belshazzar is not going to be foolish enough to not have guard. I mean, they're always going to be on guard. The palace is going to be on guard against attackers, right? No doubt. So put the watchman in place. He saw a chariot, a couple of horsemen, a chariot of asses, chariot of camels. That still doesn't sound like very much danger. Well, when we think about the way that the Medes and Persians conquered it, it would not necessarily have raised great alarm. Until it was too late. It is recorded in history that the Medes and Persians dammed up the great Euphrates and diverted water, and that these people are coming in those dry riverbeds, like what we talked about a minute ago that happens in Tucson and then other areas. Well, that's how they were coming in. They were coming in basically undetected. And then verse 8, and he cried, a lion. Then we see a colon there. Many commentators believe that this would be read, that this ought to be read when he cried. He's not actually saying, a lion, but instead he is crying as a lion, because then we see a colon that states what he cried. If we look at, let me see if I can find it here. We have a similar reference, a similar use of the language in, I think I didn't write it down, so I'm going from memory here. Revelation 13. No, it's not in Revelation 13, but somewhere in Revelation we have, he cried as a lion. That's not the passage. I thought it was 13:8, but it's not there. I should have written it down. So many believe this is supposed to be the idea of he cried like a lion would roar. My Lord, I stand continually upon the watchtower in the daytime, and said to my ward, whole nights, and behold, here cometh a chariot of men and a couple of horsemen. And he answered and said, Babylon is fallen, and all the graven images of her gods he hath broken into the ground. Now, we will find a parallel passage to that in the book of Revelation. And I want to say, again, I did not write down everything. I thought I would remember it. Well, There's two things that go as you start getting older. The first one is your memory. And the other one is your memory. Revelation chapter 18, verse 1, and after these things I saw another angel come down from heaven, having great power, and the earth was lightened with his glory. And he cried mightily with a strong voice, saying, Babylon the great is fallen, and has become the habitation of devils, and the hold of every foul spirit, and a cage of every unclean and hateful bird. For all nations have drunk of the wine of the wrath of her fornication. And it goes on. But we find that mentioned and echoed there in Revelation. Well, when did Babylon fall? We'll go ahead and read the rest of this. And the answer said, Babylon has fallen, and all the graven images of her gods hath he broken unto the ground. And it's funny because it was those very gods that had just been being praised and worshipped on the night in which King Belshazzar was slain that we read. God says, oh yeah? That's what you want to do? We'll see if these gods can deliver you. And he smotes them down. Verse 10, O my threshing and the corn of my floor, that which I have heard of the Lord of hosts, the God of Israel, have I declared unto you. Different commentators have different thoughts on the first parts of that, and I don't really have a thought. But the second part of this is what is important here. Isaiah now is speaking in his own voice, and he is reporting, that which I have heard of the Lord of hosts, the God of Israel, have I declared unto you. It would have been absolutely wild to know exactly what it was like to receive a prophecy from God. And Isaiah, I believe, he's just a vessel. He's sitting here, and again, the account that we read, he sounds like one of Belshazzar's lords giving this account, if not Belshazzar himself. Well, then what happens? I'd love to talk about the meaning of the phrase that was written on the wall. But if we look here, I'm ready for us just to skip down. Verse 10, the queen reminds Belshazzar, we got a man who can interpret dreams and he could probably interpret this too. He was an interpreter for your father, for Nebuchadnezzar, and he can. And this is the guy, and he calls him in. And Daniel says, I don't want your title, I don't want the gold chain, because I'll tell you something. To be the third ruler in your kingdom is not going to matter a whole lot after tonight. And we get down to what he's had to say here. Verse 22 in Daniel 5. He is given the account of Nebuchadnezzar being lifted up with pride, being humbled, and spending 7 years eating the grass, nails growing out, hair growing out, just as a beast would. And then the Lord restores his sanity whenever he acknowledges God as the source of his strength and wisdom. And then verse 22, and thou, his son, O Belshazzar, hast not humbled thine heart, though thou knewest all this, but hast lifted up thyself against the Lord of heaven, and they have brought the vessels of his house before thee, and thou and thy lords, and thy wives, and thy concubines have drunk wine in them, and thou hast praised the gods of silver and gold, brass, iron, wood, and stone, which see not, nor hear, nor know, and the God in whose hand thy breath is, and whose all thy ways hast thou not glorified. Then was the part of the hand sent from him, and this writing was written, and this is the writing that was written, many tekel upharsin. This is the interpretation of the thing. Many, God hath numbered the kingdom and finished it. God hath numbered the kingdom and finished it. Tekel, thou hast found thou art wanted they are weighed in the balances and found wanting. I'd love to spend a couple weeks just to talk about these four phrases, because there are double meanings in each one of these that I would love to talk about. But I'm trying to just stick to Isaiah here and not go into Daniel. But it's so tempting to talk about them. And then Perez, which is the origin, the root word of the Upharsin. Thy kingdom is divided and given to the Medes and the Persians. And then they went ahead with the whole process. Hail Daniel, third in the kingdom. Well, none of that mattered, because verse 30, and that night was Belshazzar, the king of the Chaldeans, slain. And Darius the Median took the kingdom, being about 62 years old. Talk about the night of my pleasure hath he turned into fear unto me. So, For desert of the sea, if you're looking to fill out your chart, fulfilled partially when? There's not a partial fulfillment. This was fulfilled in whole. The whole prophecy of the burden of the desert of the sea has no partial fulfillment. So you just want to flip that page right over. When was this burden and this prophecy fulfilled fully? That's going to be fulfilled fully roughly 100 years later. And I know somewhere in my chart here I have the actual date. 530. Okay, October 539 BC. We're not certain of the exact numbering of the date after the conversion from the ancient calendar to the Roman calendar, but it happened in the fall, October 539 BC. What you want to put down there in the also see, the very last blank on page 2, is you also see that's Daniel 5 and Revelation 18. I read the Revelation 18 to you already. Babylon is fallen. And in Daniel chapter 5, we see those events play out fully. The key verses of Desert of the Sea, the whole thing. I mean, it's only 10 verses. So the whole thing really is key. There's not any that's more important than the other. I want to talk about some of the notable terms and phrases. I would use the word allusions, not illusion as in something that I do, a sleight of hand trick, but allusion meaning as if I alluded to. Isaiah is not alluding to Daniel 5. Daniel 5 had not happened. But he's talking about it when you read Isaiah 21, you should be spotting Daniel 5 left and right. So the notable terms and phrases, the vision of the handwriting on the wall, we connect that there to the verse 3. I was dismayed at the seeing of it. Whatever he saw was just absolutely so the vision, being pained in the loins, the reference there of his pleasure, his night of pleasure turned to fear. Those are three things that we could see happening there, and then also that watchman. The watchman practically sees nothing in advance. It's not as if he saw, an army of 100,000 coming at him. This was done under the cover of night. It was done under the cover of. He's not looking where the riverbed. He's not looking where the river normally is. He's probably looking at a distance. He's looking for people with torches. He's looking for armies advancing. He's listening for noise, but instead they're just making their way along in the little moist riverbed, deadening sound as they go, and what an attack! It already stated there that they had besieged the city. Yeah, we recognize that Medo-Persia is out there, and we know that they're trying to overtake us, but we're safe and secure in our palaces here. Nothing's going to happen. I mean, you don't throw a party if there's an imminent threat that you're going to die that night. They perceive nothing going on. Can we look at... Can we look at one more burden? This is just well, I'll tell you how we'll do this. We'll split it this way. Look at verse, still in chapter 21. We might get both these, but I think we'll just do one. We'll just focus on one of them, then we'll get another one. And we'll get them all done eventually. But, verse 11 now. The burden of Duma. He calleth to me out of Seir. Watchman, what of the night? Watchman, what of the night? The watchman said, the morning cometh, and also the night. If ye will inquire ye. Return come. Now, if you read the first part of chapter 21, the burden of the desert of the sea, and you made connections to Babylon and Belshazzar, good. You read this one, you're probably like, all right, I don't have any clue. I don't know what's going on here. So let's look at those places that are mentioned. That's going to give us some help here. Duma is a person who eventually is going to be known as a place here. So as you are trying to determine who is intended here, the previous one, the desert of the sea, who was intended was Babylon. We got that. But here, Duma. And I have Duma and Arabia both in the same one because neither prophecy is very long, even though they are represented. It's a similar burden, but we'll look at them. Anyway, we'll talk about the Duma part first. Duma, as a person, is a son of Ishmael. Genesis 25, verse 14 would show you that Ishmael has a son named Duma. Now, where does Ishmael camp? Where does he take up residence? If you remember the birth of Ishmael, even before he was born, his mother was promised that he would be a wild man. His hand shall be against every man's hand shall be against him, and he shall dwell among his brethren. So who is Ishmael's brother? That's an easy one, but it's a hard one if you're not thinking about it. Who is Ishmael's brother? Isaac. And Isaac begat Jacob, and Jacob becomes Israel, and so the sons of Jacob are the children of Israel, the nation of Israel, the Israelites. So who is brother to Ishmael? Isaac. So who is, by extension, brothers to the Ishmaelites? The Israelites. So he will dwell among the brethren. So these people of the Ishmaelites reside in, harmony is not really the right word, but they exist together with the Israelites. And he is the head of a tribe, Duma is. We see that in 1 Chronicles 1:30. And we see a place mentioned here. He called to me out of Seir. Now you say, well, I feel like I've seen that. As a matter of fact, even in the David series, we have mentioned the place Seir once or twice. Mount Seir is located in Edom, the nation whose head is Esau. In fact, Ishmael and Esau have an interesting connection, even at that. You say, well, yeah, because Ishmael would be Esau's uncle then. Yeah. And even though Ishmael is going to be an enemy to the people of God, Esau, the Edomites, are going to be an enemy to the people of God. But a really neat tie-in is the fact that Esau married Ishmael's daughter. So, I mean, whoa. I mean, this is, talking about the people coming together against the children of Israel. The Edomites are the product of, Esau and Ishmael's offspring. So, I mean, these are going to be some rough people. So when this desert of the sea, this Duma is a reference to Moab. And you say, well, in chapter 15 we already have a burden of Moab. How come some of these places get too committed to them? Well, they just do. I can't explain why. I'm just preaching what's here. I can't tell you why everything, but I can tell you what's here. I'm going to give you a little idea of what this means, and then we will study this out the rest of the way when we look at the burden of Moab. This is a conversation. Again, remember how I just told you in the previous burden that Isaiah assumes the role of another person during the prophecy? That's what's happening right here. The burden of Duma. He calleth to me out of Seir. There is a he. There is an individual who is a Moabite. Someone from Duma, someone from Mount Seir is speaking to me. And he says to me, he refers to Isaiah as what? What's the next word we see after that? watchman. Isaiah is being mentioned as the watchman here, which has sort of a double connotation as well. He is called a watchman here, and a question is asked him. Watchman, what of the night? Watchman, what of the night? The question is asked 2 times. The watchman, who is Isaiah, said, the morning cometh, and also the night. If you will inquire ye, return, come. This question, even though it may not be evident on the surface, is being asked this way. I'm trying to ask you a question to get you to be able to give me the answer. So I'm trying to figure out exactly how I want to word it. Here, I'll give you one. There is a verse. I believe it's in Psalms. It could be in Lamentations. I cannot think of the reference right now because I came up with this example on the fly. Complete this Bible verse for me. There's a couple of blanks in here. Weeping endureth for a blank, but joy cometh in the blank. You know what goes in those blanks? Night, morning. Which one of those was associated with sadness and bad times? Night. Why? Because it's dark, because they're unknown, because there's uncertainty. And joy cometh in the morning. When the daylight breaks, it's symbolic. We use it quite frequently to talk about when things get better. Joy comes in the morning. It's night right now, but the morning's coming. We're going to, even thinking about the resurrection of Christ. Weeping in the night. In the morning, they come to anoint the body. Let's go anoint our Lord's body. I wish we didn't have to do this. And they get there and it's empty. Well, bewilderment came and the joy came when they realized what had happened. When this Moabite asked, what of the night, here's the question he's asking. When will things get better? If you look for a way to interpret that, when are things going to improve? And the meaning here, I have fulfilled partially. This is fulfilled partially, and I'll explain to you how these things work together. I don't know how you're going to put it in your blanks. I'm just going to basically tell you a story, and then you can deduce what you might want to do. You can come look at my notes if you want, but it's a lot to copy in. The residents of Moab are saying, things are bad. When is it going to get better? What of the night? We're in a night right now. When are things going to improve? Now, what was the night that they were in? Again, painting the picture for you. Imagine, again, you've got Israel, Judah. Israel aligns with Syria to try to defeat Assyria or to at least stave them off. Assyria is going to come and take Israel and Syria. And they're going to besiege Jerusalem, but God delivers Judah from Assyria, right? We know these things are in the process of happening. Well, there are other nations being affected by these world powers. Assyria is land hungry and power hungry, and so is Babylon, and so is Medo-Persia, and eventually we get our way on down to Alexander the Great, and then we get our way down to the Roman Empire. But what Isaiah is going to deal with is going to be Assyria, Babylon, Medo-Persia, and we've seen a couple of those mentioned right here. At the time that Isaiah is writing, the Assyrians are at the peak of their power. The Babylonians have not yet quite ascended to that point. Moab is a vassal state to Assyria. In other words, they have not been conquered in the same way that Syria and Israel will be. They basically said, look, we're willing to give you tribute. We're willing to give you taxes. We're willing to send our men to help you in any way that we can to help take down Israel, Syria, Judah. We are yours to command. We just don't want to be in prison. We don't want our people taken as slaves. We don't want you to displace our people from their lands. We will serve you. We will be your ally. even though we're not like equals in this partnership, we are happy to serve you. But all that being said, I mean, the options for Moab were quite limited. Because had they not reached that agreement, they could have been killed. They could have been carried off into who knows where and displaced. So for them to keep their land, for them to be able to keep their place, they had to basically say, look, we will serve you. We will be in subservience to you. Much the way that the nation of Israel was in the time of Rome, to give you an equivalent picture there. They didn't care for the Romans. They didn't love the Romans. They didn't love the fact that they were assimilated into the Roman Empire, but they can live with it. All right? But it wasn't the best scenario. Israel wanted their independence, right? That's why they wanted the Messiah to come and free them from Rome. And when Jesus revealed, my kingdom is not of this world, then people lost interest. Edom is in not a great situation, but it's tolerable. But it would be a situation that the nation of Edom, and I keep saying Moab and Edom, and I mean to say Edom. Edom would be in a situation where it's not great, it's night, and they're actually looking for deliverance from Assyria. But not so much enough to rebel. Not so much for them to take up arms against the people that they have declared their allegiance to. Right? You following me so far? But it's still rough times. So they wonder, is there a point when Assyria might be out of the picture and we can have our independence back and things will be like they were before we leagued up with the Assyrians? Not because we desired to, but because it was the only way we could see us preserving our way of life. You following so far? So when they're asking, what of the night, when will this be over? When will things get better? And this is Isaiah's answer. The watchman said, the morning cometh. So there is a morning coming. You are going to get some relief from the Assyrian Empire. The verse does not end there. What does it say after that? The morning cometh, and also the night. If you will inquire. If you want to ask more questions, you go ahead and ask. Return, come back to me. You come back and ask some more. But here's the news. Here's the full news for you. You think it's bad under the Assyrians. You will get deliverance from the Assyrians. There will be a morning, and joy comes in the morning. But then a night is coming after that. What's the night? Well, who follows the Assyrians as the next world power? The Babylonians. And under the Babylonians, which I guess this would kind of get to the point where this would be the point where you're looking at the full fulfillment for Edom. And so this is Edom. This does not attach to Moab. When I said Moab earlier, I don't know why I said Moab. So forget that. This prophecy is meant for Edom. So to give you the historical picture, here's how it wraps up. So Duma is meant for Edom. That's who's being addressed. With me? Edom had been in a league, an unequal league with Assyria. And they're asking, what of the night? When's this night going to be over? When are things going to get better? Isaiah says, morning's coming. And then another night. That next night is going to be Babylon. In history, to let you know how things go, here's Assyria. Assyria is eventually toppled for Babylon. So here's Edom. I mean, they're a small nation. It's not like they have a lot of clout where they can call the shots. So Edom attempts that same partnership with Babylon. And they say, hey, look, we're willing to be your vassals. We're willing to serve you. You know, you might want to use our area as staging so you can attack Judah from here. You may want to use us. We're happy to send our men to fight alongside of yours. We want to do whatever. We were partners with Assyria, but that was not by our choice, okay? That was not by our choice. That was a bad partnership. But we are willing to pledge allegiance to you, Nebuchadnezzar. We're willing to come along here, and, in their mind, things will get better. Edom attempts the same partnership with Babylon, which held for 30 years until it got hungry. Hungry for power, hungry for land. What happened starting in 605 BC with Babylon? You say, I don't know all these dates. All right. We were just in the book of Daniel. Daniel chapter 1. That's a hint of what happens in 605 BC. Babylon does what? They take Judah. Right? They take Judah's best and brightest. They take a large number of people out of the land. They leave some, but at this point, essentially, Judah is not fully empty, but it's diminished. Its population is greatly diminished. Edom is a neighbor. Edom is a neighbor to Judah. They decide it's a shame for all this property to just go untended. You know, we could be planting things here. We could do whatever. So they decide we want to move in to this occupied space. In fact, if you want to, I don't have time to read it all tonight, but if you want to read the book of Obadiah, it is a prophecy against the nation of Edom. And Edom has basically said, Edom in that book, Edom is saying, yeah, go ahead, Babylon. Take Judah down to the ground. Wipe it out, which he does in 586 BC. He levels Jerusalem. And they're cheering it on. And God, through Obadiah, is condemning Edom like, you're going to get yours. And they do, because after this little attempt to do a land grab, and after their own rebellion of sorts against the Babylonian Empire, you know, that Babylonian Empire that Edom was so happy would just raze Judah to the ground. King Nabonidus comes in to Edom in 553 BC, and they wipe Edom out. So, what of the night? When are things going to get better? We don't like how things are going here under Assyria. Okay, well, here's the good news. I got good news and bad news. Here's the good news. Assyria is going to be toppled. The bad news is Babylon is going to take their place. Well, that's not so bad. We'll just pledge our allegiance the same way that we did to Assyria, and we did it to Babylon too. But then whenever Babylon interpreted Edom's actions as rebellion against the empire, this Judah doesn't belong to you. This Judah is property of the Babylonian Empire. And so then Nabonidus invades Edom in 553 BC, which was a good 30 years after Judah had fallen and been taken to the ground. Things do get worse. They get a second night. And that night comes at the hands of the Babylonian Empire, not the Assyrian Empire. We will see that there's a connection to the other vision here, the other burden, the burden of Arabia. But I don't have any more time tonight. Well, I mean, I got time, but you don't have time, so I will dismiss at that point. But that's what the burden of Duma is. It is against the nation of Edom. And Edom and Moab are neighbors, so maybe that's where I got a little earlier, got the wires crossed on that. So we will. So next week, Lord willing, we will talk about the vision, the burden of Arabia, and then probably go back and catch up on Moab as well. So again, maybe next week we'll kind of recap, and I can tell you what I've got in my blanks there for Duma. Well, I'm going to let you go, and you'll beat the storm. If there's a storm coming, you'll be able to get out of here and all clear. Or you can do what you normally do and hang around and talk. You'll do whatever you want to do either way. So let's pray, and the Lord be with you. The Lord bless you, and thank you for being with us tonight. Heavenly Father, we thank you for